All right, everybody, let's get this show on the road. Welcome to the first live stream of the AI Trend Trader. And to get things started, I thought we'd basically talk a little bit about the ethos of the channel, kind of address why we started the AI Trend Trader and what's going to be happening here over the coming months, hopefully years to come. So, if you're familiar with my work, you probably know, I'm James from the Pragmatic Investor. Run a newsletter on Substack. I'm also on Seeking Alpha, and you're probably familiar with my work in terms of some of the writing that I've done. If you know from my website, I generally talk about what I call the pragmatic investing pyramid. So I'm very big on using a kind of a three-pronged approach, which kind of holistic approach to investing, if you will. The macro, the fundamentals, and the technicals, kind of putting them all together to basically find great opportunities in the market. Something which I'm pretty confident that we have been doing recently. Um, but I just wanted to basically kind of create this sort of a spin-off separate channel from the pragmatic investor, kind of trying to focus a little bit more on trading, specifically kind of on technical analysis, because these are, in a way, these are quite different things, right? If you think about long-term investing, I'm definitely someone who believes in the idea of compounding and basically in general. Obviously, if you're investing, you want to basically stay long, and within that, of course, you can use fundamentals, you can use technical analysis to find important points, but it's very different from actually trading, right? So I noticed in my audience that there was definitely kind of a bit of a divide between the people that maybe were more interested just in trading and some of the stuff we're doing with technical analysis, kind of shorter swing trades, versus the people that maybe were a bit more interested in maybe just like the fundamental stuff, right? Like the longer term kind of view of the market, right? So let me just check if everything is working okay here. I'm not really sure. Hopefully, this is streaming. We'll find out eventually, right? Anyway, so you will forgive me as I get acquainted with all this technology. Anyway, so that's on the one hand, secondly, basically, I think that this is a good chance for anyone that's interested in a slightly different type of content. I know this is very different than just reading a post. Obviously, it's a little bit more involved, but I know that there's certainly people out there who might appreciate getting like this kind of block of time where you can just hear me kind of spout some nonsense. Maybe get to know me a little bit better, and in the process also kind of participate, if you will. Hopefully, I'm not really seeing this up right now, but you guys should be able to chat and ask questions if that's what you want. Am I actually live right now? Oh, yeah, there we are. Okay. Um, so yeah, that's basically it. This is kind of the idea of what we're doing with the channel. Basically, just trying to uh, provide trading content and doing so more focused with video, especially since obviously I think trading content, obviously when you're looking at charts, that kind of thing, it obviously lends itself a lot better to viewing content on a screen, right? So overall, though, I think that anyone who's following me can benefit from this. Basically, the idea is every Monday, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, right? Yes, that's the New York time, right? We have on the East Coast. Kind of market opens, and we basically take this chance to take like 30, 45 minutes, who knows, maybe an hour. uh, i'll see I'll see how long I can actually do these for. I mean, I did used to teach English back in the day, so I'm not a stranger to rambling on until the clock runs out, but we'll see how long this is going to go on for. But the idea is basically, we kick off the week with a nice little roundup, maybe of, what we expect, kind of important catalysts, and of course, most importantly, focus on some charts, kind of, laying out some maybe potential trades, look at some interesting indicators, and, hopefully you guys can get some value from this, and ultimately, we can we can do something a bit special here, hopefully. So what I'm going to do now, basically, and for the remainder of the video, is just share my screen, and that way you get to see what I'm seeing, and we can just go over some interesting charts. And actually, well, we'll move over to our screen first, and that'll bring us into our last point, which I did want to talk about, which is the other reason I started this is because basically, if you've been following my work, you know that I've been using Trendspider for quite a while now, and uh, you may have seen me post about Trendspider a couple times, but I will say, I have been using Trendspider for a little over a year now, I believe, and I haven't pushed the platform too hard. Because that's not really what I want to do here. I mean, basically, more than anything, I'm just here to offer my views on markets and insights. But after a year, I have basically come to really like the platform. It's kind of really taken my own trading and technical analysis to the next level. So I also thought, kind of the focus of this channel as well is to try and highlight some of the utility behind the Trendspider platform, and hopefully, you guys, if you're interested, you guys can get some good use out of it. Of course, full disclaimer, I do have an affiliate link which I hope you'll use. If you do use my affiliate link, you get a substantial discount, 60% to the AI Trend Trader on Substack. So that's something to consider. But again, I'm not trying to pressure anyone. The idea, like I said, is that we're here. You get whatever 30, 45 minutes to hear me ramble on and see me using the platform. And with that said, and then if you're interested, check it out. Okay. But with that said, let's kick off today by, rather than looking at Trendspider, going out to the other website that I really like, Seeking Alpha. This is where I like to start the week. Kind of looking at what's been happening. Sorry, just my brother texting me there for a sec. So I like to look at what's been happening. Basically, uh, we have the section here on trending news, silly things here like President Trump talking about not wanting to have earnings reports. But this is a great place to kind of catch up on some of the news of the day. For example, interesting news of the week we've been looking that just came out is China, having saying that Nvidia had breached its antitrust laws. As we can see, Nvidia is down on the day, down 1.5%. So kind of interesting. Meanwhile, we have, for example, CoreWeave picking up a little bit of steam here. So we will look at the CoreWeave chart later. This is up 4%. We did trade CoreWeave at one point. Kind of bought this low here, sold a bit higher. Anyway, we'll talk about CoreWeave in a little bit. But ultimately, God, it keeps saying ultimately. I use that word way too much. Anyway, but I thought this would also be a great time to try and use Sidekick, right? This is the new feature on Trendspider that I've been talking about. They just came up with this. It's basically ChatGPT on your Trendspider for finance. So we're going to put this to the test right now, and ask our Sidekick here what are the upcoming catalysts for the week. So let's have a look here. Hello. Can you tell me what upcoming catalysts? Tell me of any upcoming catalysts in markets this week. So it's a pretty nifty tool that Trendspider has developed. Like I said, it's still being beta tested, so I haven't used it a ton. There's also a limit on what you can do depending on your plan, but it's kind of interesting, right? You can see some, for example, here it's giving us highlighting major earnings. So that's one way of looking at major earnings. Let's see. Okay, so basically it's just giving us some earnings, which not that interesting now since earnings season's kind of over. You can ask it a kind of all kinds of different questions. I highlighted a couple of good uses in my last post. So it's definitely a tool that we're going to be using in the coming weeks. Hopefully, it'll help us. Like I showed before, it help you analyze your own chart as well. Do all sorts of different things. Okay. So with that said, however, I will say that it is important in terms of macro news. For the US, it is going to be an interesting week. Of course, we have retail sales on Tuesday. Some housing data. Housing has really been a focus of interest for the for markets lately. Definitely with Trump talking about that, and of course, obviously, we have to talk about the Fed interest rate decision, right? So obviously, they will have the meeting on Thursday. Consensus is that they're going to cut 25 basis points, but we'll see. Could we get a surprise? Normally, the market prices these things very well. We'll see what happens, right? So again, this is something that, for example, we could ask Sidekick, right? We could ask our sidekicks, what are your thoughts on the upcoming? I don't know what's gonna happen here, guys. Are we gonna get? It's definitely good for analyzing charts, which I've pointed out before. I haven't used it this way before, so it's gonna be interesting to see what it kind of gives us here. Is it actually going to form a bit of an opinion, or is it maybe just going to what it's going to tell us here? But anyway, yeah, so kind of interesting. It's definitely going to be an interesting week in terms of macro, and it's an interesting setup because if we actually look, obviously, markets right now pretty much approaching, back at all-time highs, as we have been grinding in the last few. I guess I can make this smaller here. Just put this here. I don't know. While it's thinking. So it's definitely going to be an interesting setup we're going into now. Traditionally, of course, Fed rate cuts have been followed by by sell-offs, right? A lot of the times, there's a lot of images of this going around, right? You look at the S&P versus the okay, this is an interesting chart here. For example, you can see this is going back all the way to 79. You can see how it relates. Now, for example, obviously, more recently, obviously, the Fed started cutting interest here in 2000. Okay, that was the dot-com. That was the beginning of the dot-com crash. Obviously 2008, the COVID scare, right? So definitely quite interesting. And I would say there's definitely some room for a pullback, right? Especially if we look at the SPX chart here. Obviously, no signs of weakness here yet, but let's just say that obviously, on the 4-hour chart, we're now getting a little overbought once again, and we can't argue the fact that if we do look at the daily, even though we obviously this kind of divergence here didn't quite pan out, but we could argue that there is a divergence forming here, right, with the RSI again entering overbought territory, but so making a so the chart making a high with the RSI actually not making a high, right? So maybe showing that there's a little bit of lack of momentum there. Okay, something which you can also see, for example, in the MACD, right? Now, interestingly, so what I do here to look at some reasonable targets is, for example, look at the last decline we got from April. If we look at the FIP extensions from there, we can see that, oops, sorry, move that chart. We can see that we are approaching the 1.382 extension, right? Ideally, what I would like to see is basically to approach this 1.618 extension, and as we can see, we are kind of tracking this kind of trend line over here. So to see the S&P go into this area over the coming months, and then maybe break down from just south of SPX 7000, that would be right now my preferred view. Something I would find quite interesting. I think, even though obviously there's a lot of bears out there, I think there's still a lot of Still a lot of people. Sorry, there are a lot of people who are very bullish, but I think we're not quite at the euphoric levels, right? But the key, of course, is we'll be keeping a very close eye on our patented strategy, right? This is our algorithm that we developed here on Trendspider, and I'll be talking in depth about this in our coming video. But we're gonna do a pretty deep dive into the into our into how we build this algorithm, right? Which basically relies on RSI, MACD, and moving averages. So, but as we can see, this kind of has kept us long here since about August. There was a moment there where it told us to exit. There was that bearish crossover. Nope. Actually, well, I've got this on the 4 hour, so I've been playing around with this lately. You can basically change the time frame on it, which is quite interesting. So obviously, if you look at the so now I'm on the 4 hour, it gives you fewer signals than if you did on the 2 hour. So definitely something interesting and worth playing for. But as you can see, this is quite good at kind of getting us out, kind of when we lose momentum, and then getting us quickly in. The algorithm, it's not foolproof, but it's specifically kind of designed to generally, kind of enter quickly, because obviously, so the index has, let's say, a bullish bias, right? So it's kind of always looking to get us in quite quickly when the MACD starts curling up. So anyway, we are long right now. So obviously, this could change if basically on the 4 hour chart, if we started to see basically either the MACD start to roll down, or we saw that crossover of the EMAs, right? So we don't have much evidence of that right now on SPY. The Qs are likewise kind of just chugging along, much closer potentially to, similarly reaching now that 1.382 extension, right? So again, we can see the algorithm in action here. We can see how basically it made us exit here, kind of, spared us from some of the downside during that, that April sell-off, but also, got us in quite quickly here. So not quite at the lows, but sparing us some of the downside there. So for the most part, keeping us on the right side of the market, right? At least now that we're kind of in this, let's call it bullish bias. This is why, of course, it's important to use the algorithm, but stuff like macro definitely important to understand in terms of maybe thinking about the larger moves that you can look at. Okay, so that's as far as the indexes are concerned. I want to take this chance to also, another thing I like to do when the week is starting is basically run a scanner. So another thing we can do on Trendspider. Again, something that I'm looking at eventually being able to kind of automate, so that every week we can easily see like our scanner results on the pop up on the group, either on Substack or preferably on eventually have a Telegram group where we can get all these results. So this is a personalized scan that I built, which basically is made to look for setups kind of that would trigger if our algorithm were to find a buy, right? So again, this triggers if the RSI is oversold, or for example, if we see a bullish cross of the EMAs. Also, if the MACD is turning up, right? And some interesting kind of buys alerts here. For example, we have Costco over here, our scanner flagged. Okay, so we just got this kind of crossover of the EMAs. We can see it's kind of finding support here on the 20 and 50 EMA. Interesting, Meta is here, right? This has been kind of squeezing down. Again, kind of action we've seen before, right? Where we kind of sell off back into the EMAs. So potentially a good spot to buy there. And we have also Nvidia here triggering a buy alert, right? So Nvidia has saw the 4 hour EMA do a bearish crossover last week, and now we're seeing kind of a fine support and potentially turn back with the MACD curling up. So potentially good long trade there as we move into support. Um, Another interesting market scanner that we can run, again, very simple, but the beauty of this is that it kind of just makes it so much easier to do these kinds of things, right? Because we have here a 200 EMA scanner, so we basically build this, and this is very easy to build. You can actually add conditions here just by typing, right? So I could type in here, 200 EMA cross, and Trendspider would figure this out for me, right? So basically, this is going to now look on the S&P 500. It's going to look at any stocks that have crossed on the 200 EMA, right? Or that are touching the 200 EMA, right? And we can see some interesting names there. Next Era Energy. This, of course, has been kind of hovering around there. Let's see. We have Archer Daniels Midland. And just a few names there. There's an interesting one I saw before. I can't really see it right now. Anyway, just an interesting scanner to look at. We have Verizon here. What you can also do, like I said before, is basically change the time frame on this. So you could apply this to a daily chart. Again, it's a good way of kind of looking for different opportunities, right? But ultimately, I wanted to end this stream also by highlighting some of the more interesting trades that I'm seeing right now. So let's see. Let me just look at my cheat sheet right here. So one of them is AMD. Very, very interesting AMD right now. Okay. Basically, we got that very big run up since about April, and since then, basically we've seen. Why did this should be on the 4-hour chart? I think generally gives us better results for the 4-hour chart. But since then, we've ride pretty strongly. I said the market is kind of waking up to the AMD opportunity right now. Something that I became even more bullish on AMD after the recent Oracle earnings. And you'll notice that after this sell-off, now basically we touched that 200 EMA on the 4-hour. And bounce back, and now our algorithm has actually given us a long entry for AMD. Okay, so I don't see. So here we go. That's a bit better. So I was having. So this, this is the. I was choosing here the range of candles I was back testing my algorithm on. Obviously, that's the thing, right? You can play around with these, and obviously, it's going to give you different results depending on how many candles you apply, right? But I would say using the last 2,000 candles is basically a good barometer where I usually like to be. And as you can see, the algorithm has been pretty good with tracking AMD and outperformed, the chart has performed 188% versus 51% for AMD. So right now, obviously, again, this isn't happening, this isn't going to happen all the time, but, our algorithm actually called this low quite well, this kind of double low that AMD formed here. And now it's telling us again, that it's a good time to go long. And again, fundamentally, I really like AMD right now. Some very interesting reports just came out talking about how AMD, how their latest chips, the MI55X, is that what it's called? It's basically performing as well as NVIDIA. I actually have a Seeking Alpha article coming out on that very soon, so I'll send you a link on the chat for that, definitely. Open Door, we can't really, do a chat right now without talking about Open Door. Really, really kind of interesting. And wow, I hadn't even noticed this until just now. Very interesting here. Our algorithm actually, got us out of Open Door right at the top there, back in the when it rallied all the way to, what was that, $5 in July, and then got us long back here. Okay, now Open Door is trading at around $10. Again, I recently wrote about Open Door on Seeking Alpha. It's it's an interesting play. I mean, this is a GME, and it's got some very interesting potential, especially with maybe the idea that obviously this administration is going to work quite hard maybe towards reigniting the housing market. I mean, I can't really tell you to go long here, but I do have some shares. I haven't, I don't recommend, I'm not gonna, I haven't put this in my public portfolio, but I have a very small position just because I want to keep track of this one. It's definitely interesting. I'm not even gonna like try and quantify, what it could reach. I know that guy on Twitter said it was gonna reach $83. I don't know, but anyway, very interesting here. It's kind of stuff you can do with the algorithm. Which of course, if you sign up to Trendspider, you will of course get access to this algorithm. I can send it to you. You can have a look at it, apply it whenever you like. So again, just check out Trendspider with the link that I'm gonna put in below. Oh, I should have put that in already, probably. Anyway, all right. Moving on. I'm gonna cover a few more stocks, and then we're gonna end this because my girlfriend is out having wine, and gotta go join her before it gets too late. I'm actually in Thailand right now. I probably should have started with that. So it's actually coming up to 9:30 now, in the evening. That is. So I would like to do these better in the morning. But hopefully, well, it'll be a bit better. I'll be going back to Barcelona, and by then gonna be there. That's my hometown, Barcelona. I'm gonna be there for the next 3 months, so definitely I'll be able to get a bit of a better setup going. That's kind of also why I decided to start this now. Hopefully I can get a bit of a more professional studio going on. Anyway, we're going to talk about Rubrik as well. Rubrik is a stock that I really like as well. In the cybersecurity space, very interesting. This one basically sold off very strongly after earnings. Obviously this one doesn't really backtest so well on 4-hour algorithm. What I like to do here is, for example, if it doesn't backtest very well on the 4-hour, you can actually try and move this to the 2-hour. You can see it actually does a bit better, right? Every stock's different, right? They have different volatility, but you can see actually if you move to the 2-hour, it's managed to find some good entries down here. So basically what I could do now is basically set an alert where on the 2-hour, we're going to get this bot to send us an email and an SMS so that when it triggers a buy, this is going to be sent directly to us. And of course, eventually the idea is I can basically automate this into a Telegram group, send it to all you guys, and we can really kind of streamline the process of finding good entries and exits for different stocks, right? Okay, and just to finish off, CoreWeave is, doing okay right now. So we've seen it have a nice little bounce. I mean, it's interesting. A few months ago, obviously, I wrote about CoreWeave and Nebius. Obviously highlighting that Nebius had a lot more potential. Of course, since then, Nebius has just skyrocketed. CoreWeave is now kind of a little in the dust. Fundamentally, I still think that the stock is really kind of lacking, but it doesn't mean that it's not. It might be a good trade. Again, look, if we look on the 2-hour chart for CoreWeave, we actually got a nice entry here, pretty close to the lows. Let's see on the 4-hour, pretty similar. Well, it got us in here. So we're at about that price now after forming kind of a double bottom. So I think there's a compelling argument here. We have a bit of a EMA cluster here that we bounced off of, so definitely not a bad entry for CoreWeave here. That's a bit of a play. And then lastly, I wanted to point out HIMS. Okay, again another stock that I've been long for a long time. Obviously done really well on this one, and I really like again the algorithm backed us really well on this too. And we got an entry long here back at the end of August. And it bounced up very nicely, and I just saw a chart on Twitter talking about how institutional investors are now maximum. It's the most invested that institutions have been in HIMS. So obviously, kind of bullish, I would say. A bit of a bullish sign there. So check out those stocks, okay, guys. And again, the algorithm back tests quite well, and the idea is eventually, we can kind of automate all of these, and kind of you guys can get direct access to the trades right as they're coming in. In the meantime, obviously, you guys should follow the newsletter if you're not doing so already. Follow the YouTube so you can get updates on our videos. We'll be posting our first video on Wednesday, so you guys can check out that video. We'll be talking in depth about our algorithm, how we built it, and yeah, basically that's what we're going to be doing. And then on Friday we're going to be then on Friday is when we're going to update our trades, right? So we have our swing portfolio, which is now basically our new AI trading portfolio. So every trade there is now basically going to be 100% run by our algorithm. Whether it's this one, whether it's new ones we can build. So it's all going to be basically streamlined and automated because again, that's kind of the beauty of technology and AI is that you can you can do these kinds of things, right? You don't need to live to trade, right? You don't need to trade, don't need to live to trade. You trade to live, right? So you don't have to be stuck to your screen 24/7. That's a good intro. I should have used that in the intro as a better hook. Anyway, that's also part of what we're starting here, right? Something there where can make trading a lot more accessible to everyone. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, even though it's pretty bad for it's my first time. So guys, cut me some slack if you're still here. You have cut me a load of slack, unless you just fast forward it to the end. I don't know why you would do that. But nonetheless, thank you guys for joining me here. And yeah, follow along YouTube or Substack, the AI Trend Trade. And definitely, if you haven't already, I suggest you check out Trendspider. Link will be on the description below. Okay, so that's all for today. Hope you have a great rest of your week. I'll be sending out some more alerts on the Pragmatic Investor video coming out Wednesday. So tons of stuff you'll be hearing from me. See you next time.